Alright, so let's take a look at my cribbage board MOC. So here are the first two levels. Now the first level, these are just 16 by 16 plates to serve as a base. And then on these plates, I have basically a ring of plates here. These are 2 by 6s around here, then down to a 2 by 3, and then just the same coming up this way, and a couple 2 by 8s. Now this is actually half of the cribbage board, and that's because of the design that I'm using. Instead of using each individual peg as a point counter, I'm actually going to build up and leave gaps in the structure to serve as actual holes, so I can put Lego pegs in those, so it makes it seem more like a regular cribbage board. Now I've got these rows of 2 by 6 of the reddish brown, and again that ends with 2 by 3s. Now the white tiles, these are the bottoms of the holes for the pegs, and so I wanted something flat here so that the peg wouldn't actually stick to the bottom. It would just sit in there. So I need the 2 rows, and actually there will be holes on every one of those, but it's a lot easier just to put in a whole row. So I've got 2 rows here and 2 rows here. Now this is the left-hand side, so to speak. This is the start. It goes around. There's another board, and then it comes back around, and here's the finish. Now the other half here, so this is the second half of the board. So this is this goes up here, and then as it comes around, I've got to have some extra places for the pegs to go to make a kind of a curved path around here, so I've got extra tiles there. But otherwise the structure is the same. This structure here is going to be there so that I can easily break the board in half and put it back together, because these are kind of large. Okay, this is 128 studs long between the two of these, and that is just over 1 meter. This is going to be this is a fairly large cribbage board. So let's go ahead and start building up the rest of the structure. We're going to have a couple of holes here for the starting positions for the pegs before we start in on the actual counting, and then here at the end we'll reach 120, and that will be the end. And so to build this up, we're going to use a variety of 1 by bricks, and so those are, and in fact a couple of 2 bys, but mostly these 1 bys. Now at the edge I have to build it a little bit differently than the rest of it. Let's go ahead and zoom in here a little bit. And what I'm trying to do is to use the largest possible pieces I can to be able to bridge across the pieces on the lower level so that this has a lot of structural stability. But yet I have to make sure I follow the appropriate pattern to get the right positions exposed for the peg to go in. Now the 1 by 4 bricks here, these are going to go basically all the way up, so I'll go ahead and put a few of those in just to show you that. So that's going to be a consistent pattern. Now we'll get into the consistent patterns here in the center and on the edges in a moment. I'm going to put another 2 by 3 right there. Now we're going to start to use some larger pieces, and again we're going to use the largest pieces that we can as we go along here. So I'm going to put this piece in right here. That's a 1 by 6. Okay, we're going to put another 1 by 6. Okay, let's start building in here a little bit. So there's a 1 by 2 and 1 by 3, and we're leaving these tiles open because that's going to be the holes for the pegs. Now on the bottom here we can use another larger piece, so 1 by 6. Now we're going to follow the same 1 by 4 pattern in between the peg holes on this side as well. And then we need a 1 by 3 here. and a 1x2. Now on the edge, that's the pattern we're going to build up. We're basically going to be using a 1x3 to cover the tile, and then a 1x2 to leave it open. And we'll just keep on going. That pattern is going to go all the way up. So that one's a pretty easy pattern. I should mention that this is a little bit of a monotonous build for the base here, but it goes very quickly. You're just putting 1x3s, 1x2s, every other position. So I'll just run those up a little ways. And we're exposing every other position for the peg holes. Now we have to do the same on the other side. The pattern starts a little bit further up because we don't have these initial peg holes. This is actually 1 point, and that is 121 points. Okay. Now in the middle, now I had originally used smaller pieces in here, but I realized there was really no point in using the smaller pieces because it's not that hard to find larger 1x pieces, 1x6s and 1x8s, and they're not terribly expensive or anything. So we've got holes there, so we need to put an 8 across there, then a 6, then an 8, and then a 6. And we're just going to keep building that up, and now we can start to see this pattern building up very nicely. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish up the rest of this off camera, and then we're going to build up the next level. Okay, so we filled out this third layer, the one full brick layer as opposed to a plate or tile layer, and we can see the pattern there. Now at the edges, what we've got to do is we want to be able to attach these two halves together, but make it easy to pull them apart. So what I've done here is I've put some tiles, 1x4 tiles right here and here, and then I have a little 1x2 plate. And then I've constructed this this piece here out of two 1x8s, a 1x3, a 1x6, and a 1x3 plate, and these two end pieces. So these pieces are going to go here, and so those will lock in to those two studs right there. And then this piece will come across the top and lock in there. And this is still very secure, but it's easy to peel that off. And that's just because there are only just 6 studs worth of connection out of the 16. And so originally I had designed something with Technic pieces and pins and all that stuff, but this actually, I think this is a lot better. Okay, so we'll put this aside. And now on top of here, we have to put on the next layer. Now there's going to be a pattern to this as well. And again, I've put this together with the thought of using the tiles to provide extra structural stability. This still, whoops, as you can see, this is really still a little fragile. But when we put this layer of tiles on, that will get a lot better. So first of all, let's put a couple of 1x8 black tiles here, and then I'm going to basically run a row of black tiles up the center. Now I'm going to leave one space here open because this is where we're going to count games. And for that, you just stack pieces up on top of that. The higher the stack, for the more games you've won, if you're playing to 3 games or 5 games or something like that. Now, I'm going to do 3 sets of the 1x6s here in the center. However, I also wanted to put indicators every 10 points along this, because there are going to be point indicators right next to the holes, but I also wanted to put some indication in the center, and that also makes it just a little more attractive. Gives it a little bit of color to kind of pop. So for that, we are just going to have a 1x2 blue piece. And then we're going to keep on running 1x6s, and then we'll do the same thing, and we'll have more of these blue pieces in there every 10 points. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and so on. But now for the main part here, where we're actually counting pieces, I'm going to use light gray tiles. And this came after a little bit of experimentation, because originally I had black tiles over the whole thing. The problem is the black tiles and the shadowed areas here inside the holes didn't give a lot of contrast. So it turns out that it's better to have the top kind of light colored, and then you can see the holes a little better. And I didn't want to go all the way to using white, so I decided to go ahead and use the light gray. Now again, we've got to do some fiddling around here on the edges to get this correct. So we're going to have a couple of 1x3s right here. We'll have a 1x3 here in the center. A couple more 1x3s. Again, we're going to leave this open. Now over here, the structure is obviously a little bit different because we have a different set of holes. So this is going to be 1x3, 1x3, and 1x3. But now we're going to have 1x2s above and below that. Oops. Okay. Now we also need the 1x2s here to fill this in. Okay, and now we're the same on both sides, and we can start filling in what's going to be the pattern, but we want to do one other thing first. I'm going to go back to the color tiles because I wanted to put a starting line and a finish line. So I decided to do that in green. Okay, and there we go. So there's the start line with the 2 places to put pegs before you start, and then there's the finish line at 121 points. And now we're going to run a more consistent pattern all the way up. Now again, I'm going to use as large a pieces as possible. So I've got to put, I'm going to also put these kinds of indicators every 5 points here, and then every 10 points I'm actually going to put tiles in there so that it actually shows a number. But otherwise, I'm going to use 1x8 tiles. For the structural stability. Now there are a couple of, this isn't going to work out exactly, so what I'm doing here is using the 1x8s where possible, but if I have 10 spaces to fill in, I'll do a 2-8 and a 8-2 pattern on each side. And similarly, there'll be a place later where I'll have a 12 pattern that I fill in with a 8-4 and a 4-8. Okay, so now up the center. And I decided that because this center here has pretty good stability, I'm going to go ahead and just use 1x1s every other place here. And as you can probably guess, I'm going to have 1x3s across in between. That'll give a little bit more stability across there. Okay, now there's the 5th position. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So after 5 holes, instead of putting one of these in, we're going to put a blue one in to indicate 5 points. Okay, now we can do more of the 1x3s. Put these in. And kind of the most fiddly part here is getting these 1x1s in and making sure they're not skewed one way or the other. Okay, so 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, at the 10th hole, we're going to want to start making our number. Now, the first number here, 10, well, we're going to line up the 1 right along where the boundary between right here, where basically where 10 points is going to be. So 10 points is basically right there. Now, when we put in larger numbers, the rest of the numbers will extend out a little further, so it'll be a little centered, a little better centered on there. And then we need our 10, or 0 for the 10. And so we're going to do that. So there we have the number 10. And now we're going to fill in around that. For filling in around that, because it kind of disrupts the pattern, what I'm going to do here is, here's where I'm going to use some of these 2x2 corners. They're a little more expensive, so I'm not using those throughout, but in places where they should go. And then of course we'll have more of the little 1x1s. And then extend that to the edge. And then we'll start up some more of the long ones. But as I said before, there are places where we're going to need 12 of these, and so I'll do a 4/8 pattern for that. Okay, so we'll do that. And remember, this is 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, so we're going to want a blue right there. Let's go ahead and fill in the gray tiles in between. And at the end, you can make sure that all those 1x1s are properly rotated. Okay, now we've got to put in the 20. Okay, so the number 2 is going to wrap around the actual 20th peg hole. So this is 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So that's the 20th hole. And so we're going to build the 2 around that. So there's our number 2. And we've got to do some other, filling in with the gray pieces. we're again going to use these 2x2 corners where it seems appropriate, and that's going to be mixed in with some regular 1x2s. Now we have to do the 0, which again, use the same pattern for the 0, just 4 1x3s. And we'll use 2 corners again. Okay, and there we have our 20. So right now our board, we have the start and finish lines. We have 5, 10, 15, 20, all that marked out. And then we just keep doing the same thing all around here. So here we're going to have 110 points. Here we're going to have 100 points. So we can do the we can go ahead and do the 110. Now there are obviously 2 1s here, so we'll put those right next to each other, and then the 0 is going to be in exactly the same place here as the 0 for the 10. Now you do have a choice here. You could flip these upside down and do it that way, so that it, you know, whichever way you're facing the board, the numbers that are closest to you are going to be right side up. But and I felt that kind of looked a little bit weird, so I'm sticking with this. This is going to be 100, and that means we've got the 0. We're going to have 2 zeros. And oops, wrong one. And then we have our 100. Now out here on the edge, well, what's going to happen is that we need a 30 here and a 90 here. And in fact, what's going to happen is the 3 is going to be all on this half, and the 9 is going to be all on this half, and then the 0 will be on the other half of the board. So there's our 3 hanging off, kind of hanging off the edge there. Now, remember in cribbage, at 90 points, that counts as a skunk, and so that counts as 2 wins. And at 60 points, that's a double skunk, which counts it counts as either 3 or 4 wins, depending on exactly what rules you're playing by. So I decided to make those kind of a brighter color. So what I'm doing is for 90 for the skunk, I'm going to make that in bright red. Let's see. And so we go around here, and it's going to go in there. And we're going to use a 2x2 corner. Now, on all of this, again, you have the choice of exactly what you want to use in those places. And I seem to have misplaced a piece here. I should have another one of those. Not sure what I did with that. Must have dropped it. That's okay. Let's go back to the drawers there and put that in. And then that's our number 9. And if we rotate this around, you can see that a little better. And then the corresponding zeros are going to go on the other half of the board where we make that connection. So the rest of this is basically filling that in, filling in all these tiles. And so again, I'll do that off camera. Okay, so now we have the one half of the board all tiled. And turn it around here. So we can see the numbers stand out very nicely. We can see the one of the things that I tried to do is I tried to keep the patterns kind of the same going through here. If you kind of just randomly mix things up, it can look kind of weird, and there are even some other ways of tiling this that also look kind of weird. So you'll have to kind of experiment with that. I guess I left out two little pieces there. But you can kind of play around with that and decide exactly how you want your tiling pattern to work. But this is kind of the general scheme here. And these tiles significantly, again, because I've tried to do that, they significantly increase the structural stability of this. So you can pick up. I'm picking up the board here. You can do that and shake it around, and it's not going to fall apart. There's a couple of seams here where it's a little bit looser, and one could maybe modify your construction pattern a little bit, but it wasn't anything that I felt was significant enough to want to mess up the general pattern that's going here, where I have kind of a nice consistent pattern. For pegs, well, you can use these 1x1x5s or 1x1x3s. So I have some of each here. So if you want to use the 3s, let's do that. So you can count off here, and these actually go in there. They slide in there actually pretty easily. There's enough space in between the pegs that, or even enough space here when you make these holes that it's actually pretty easy to do that. You've got tactile feel here when you're counting, so you can count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can see that on its side. The other thing is that if I tilt it a little bit, this is where you can see, this is kind of more like the angle that you'd probably be looking at the board, kind of off center a little bit. And notice that the holes are dark, and now you have the light color around that. Now, straight up like this, which you're not going to be using, your head's not going to be directly over this, then the holes look a little lighter, maybe not quite as good of a contrast depending on the lighting, but you do get good contrast when you're looking at it at an angle, and that's what I tried to do there. Okay, so let's go ahead and build the other half and see how that looks. Okay, I did want to stop in the middle here and show you that we've got to change our pattern a little bit here on the edge, because we're going to have holes kind of going around a circle. We come in, we've got the last 4, and next to the last 4 we're going to have two 3s, and then we'll have a 2, and that's going to start stretching this out to go around with the same number of holes as we go around the narrower radius. Yeah, we've got a lot of these tiles to cover here, so we've got to make sure that we do that correctly. So we're going to have a 4 here, and we'll have a 4 over here. Now we've got to fill in the center. Okay, so we're going to have now these 3s cover up that hole, and we'll put a 4 in the middle. Now we're going to use a couple of 1s and a 2 for this level. And now we can go all the way across with a couple of 8s right here. So this is the inner, that's the inner track. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 here, and now we've got so these match. So we've got 4 here. Now we have to have 4 up here, and so we're going to make those 4 cross right on this level right here. To do that, we're going to put some 2s here, and then we need to, this, and this are going to be the exposed areas. So we'll put a 3 on each side there, and then we'll need a 2 here in the middle. So there's our 4 holes for the outer track, And now we just need to fill this in, and we can fill this in with larger blocks. And so all I've done here is just take some 2x6s and 2x4 bricks here and fill that in. And so there we have the going around the corner there. Now for the tiles, we'll start out in a similar manner and do the similar things, and then I want to show you in detail what we're going to do here at the edge when we turn the corner. Okay, and now for the turnaround here. Now I just realized that I'm short a few of these 1x8 gray tiles, so we're going to fill in with some 1x4s here, but that's not too big of a deal. Again, if you don't have 1x8s and want to use 1x4s, you can use 1x4s, and the whole thing is just the 1x8. Just gives it that maybe a little bit cleaner look, and gives you a little bit more structural stability here. Now, just like we did on the at the start, we're going to put these 1x8 blacks here on the end to fill that out. We've got a couple of 2x2s. These are the only gray 2x2 tiles that we're going to use here. And now let's go ahead and put in the 60. Okay, so I'm using bright light orange here for this. So let's go ahead and do that. So there's our 6, and there is our 0. So again, 60 is a halfway point, and that's also the double skunk point. I'm going to make, this is going to be our halfway barrier. We got to make it double because we've got an even number of pieces across here. So those are the orange pieces, and we'll fill in the black here, and then the rest of this we're just going to fill in normal gray stuff here. Get that out of the way. So we've got to kind of fiddle around here with the pattern. I kind of played with this a little bit to get what I think is maybe the optimal pattern here, but again, you can do what you want with this. Whatever you do, it's nice to make it symmetric, so that's why I'm doing this. It's symmetric about this axis. And then we've got to fill in this, and then we get to fill in the 1x3 there. And so there we go. We got the tiles filled out on this. Got the pieces can go around the corner there. So again, for the connection, just snaps on like that and comes off very easily. Now you don't want to pick it up in this long state, but that holds together very nicely for play. Okay, so here we go. Here's the whole board. Again, it's more than 1 meter long. Maybe a little, you could consider it a little bit unwieldy, but it's really cool. Definitely make your next cribbage game a lot more interesting. I'm also working on another design for a cribbage board that will be basically about as small as you can do it, using a little bit different design than this. But in any case, this is kind of a neat little project. And down below, I will put a list of how many pieces of what type that you need to put this together. And if you decide to build this, good luck, and let me know how it goes.